Hi, my name is KD. I'm part of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Thank you for joining this session on Oracle Functions. This is part one of this session. So in this session, we are going to start with why do we need Oracle Functions. We'll look at serverless compute. We'll talk a little bit about the FN open source project on which the Oracle Functions service is based. We are going to get into the overview and key features for the function service. We are going to discuss the core concepts of applications, functions, invocations, triggers, etc. in Oracle Functions. We are going to discuss the IAM policies that you need in OCI for working with functions. We are going to talk about under the cover what happens when you deploy a function and then what happens when you actually invoke a function. We'll look at the metrics that the service reports. We will look at some reference architecture of common use cases with functions. And finally, we will look at a demo of the Oracle Function Service in action. Let's get started. So let's start with serverless. It is quite a mainstream thing right now. Serverless is actually a category of cloud services that raises the abstraction level so that you don't have to think about servers, VMs or other underlying infrastructure components. It is, in a way, it's an execution model of within cloud computing, in which the cloud provider, in this case OCI, runs the underlying infrastructure and dynamically manages all the allocation of all the resources that are required to be run. Functions as a service is an example of the compute pieces of serverless. So serverless compute is one category of serverless, and functions as a service is what we are going to discuss here, because the Oracle Functions service belongs to this category. Functions and have been getting quite popular, and the reasons include there is just less for you to manage. You don't have to worry about underlying infrastructure components, which means that you can focus only on your writing code for your business logic and solving those problems. You can improve your productivity since you have less to do in the end-to-end stack. You can be more agile and be nimble. You can experiment more. It can be cheaper for you as well, because in this case you only pay for when your code is running. So in a traditional environment, on the left side of this picture you see bare metal or VMs. What you have to do is manage the VM, which is running all the time. You have to worry about patching the operating system. You have to install the right runtime, let's say Java. You have to install all the application components, let's say Tomcat server, and then there is your code that you have to manage. And you pay for all of this setup to be running all the time, whether the actual code is being executed or not, whether you have an incoming request or not. You have to be up and running, waiting for those requests to come in. But with the functions, you only need to deploy your code, and the code is run in response to to some triggers that we are going to talk about shortly. And once the code is actually executed, that's the only time you are paying for it, and not outside of that. So it can save you money, and it is actually more reliable for you, because you don't have to worry about any networking issues, anything going wrong there. No configuration issues on the infrastructure layer, no performance issues at the infrastructure level, and it provides, you don't have to do capacity planning or maintenance or worry about scalability All of these things are getting managed for you. So it's a big win for many use cases. So let's talk about Oracle Functions, which is an on-demand, fully managed, and highly scalable functions as a service platform for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. Uh, you would use functions when you want to just focus on writing code to meet your business needs. You don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure, like we discussed, because functions service will ensure that your application is highly available, scalable, secure, and it is monitored, and you get the metrics out of it. Uh, it works very well with the OCI ecosystem, integrates with identity and access management in OCI. For example, it is container native. So if you are familiar with Docker or use Docker containers, function uses that. Uh, it is based on the open source FN project. So FN project is Apache 2.0 licensed. It is container native. It is a serverless platform, and it can be run anywhere. It can be run on cloud, on premises, on your laptop. As long as you can run a Docker container, you can run FN. Let's take a quick look at the FN project page. You can go to fnproject.io and you can go to Quick Start. There's documentation, tutorials, and a lot of other collateral that can help you. I'm going to show you around a little bit. So this is all on GitHub. It's open source, Apache 2.2 licensed, as I said, and you can contribute this project as well, and you can use this project anywhere you like, whether it's in OCI or in any other cloud platform, or your on-premises deployment, as well as on your laptops, etc. It is platform independent that way. It is based on the Docker containers, and so you can use all of that Docker container ecosystem with it. It is also in that sense scheduler independent. If you're using Docker, you can use Kubernetes. If in case you're using it on your laptop or in your on-prem or anywhere you want, you can use different schedulers, Kubernetes, Swarm, Mesos, etc., and leverage all the Docker ecosystem effectively. Uh, and it comes with some FDK, so it's not language specific. As long as you can create a Docker container, you can run any language, but there is support for functions development kits for Java. Obviously, it's a first-class citizen here, and as well as there is Python, Go, and Ruby, etc. But you can use any other language that you want, as long as you can create a container. And this actually represents a difference in the OCI strategy with respect to serverless and functions as a service than other platforms. Uh, every cloud platform out there has a functions service of some kind. The difference is that all those providers pretty much have a proprietary solution that lock you in, but using Oracle functions based on FN, you can essentially do your development and leverage it anywhere. Again, it's paper execution only when the code is running, and it is autonomous in the sense that the platform is going to auto scale, and you don't have to manage the infrastructure components. Uh, and in terms of overviews, I'm going to get into the detail, but right now it's important to just mention that it's very easy to work with. You can do your dev test and development on your own laptop, which is also differentiated with many other cloud provider offerings out there. But you essentially upload your code and your configuration to a container registry. OCI has OCIR, the container registry in OCI. You can leverage that or any other container registry if you want. Uh, you set up a trigger. A trigger could be any kind of event. So you can directly invoke a function, set up timers to invoke it, or it can be triggered through the OCI events service as well. You can directly invoke using the HTTP endpoint that each function automatically creates an Oracle function service. So once you set up the trigger, the Oracle functions will run your code only in response to your uh, trigger, and you will only pay for the time that your code is actually running and nothing outside of that. And the function service integrates very nicely in the OCI ecosystem, so you get very useful metrics with built-in monitoring. It runs in your VCNs, and you can specify the subnets to use, etc. It can or it integrates with the IAM service, the Identity and Access Management Service in OCI as well. This is an example of a of a function, the piece of code, Java in this case, but you can use other languages. We'll look at these examples, some more examples later on. I'll give you a demo as well, but you can leverage SDK and essentially write code in a way which is very familiar and similar to what you have been doing. So your development environment does not really need to change much. There are function development kits. There are these five languages that are first-class citizens right now that I mentioned. Python, Java, Go, Node.js, and Ruby. But if you can containerize something in Docker containers, you can run these in OCI. Let me wrap up part one of this session right now. Till now, we have looked at what are functions as a service offerings, why do we need them. We discussed serverless compute. We uh, looked at the open source FN project and on which the Oracle Function Service is based. We discussed the differentiators for Oracle Function Service, and we looked at some of the key features and an overview of this service. In part two, we will start with getting deeper into the core concepts of this service. I look forward to you joining part two of this session. Thank you.